A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
It's not easy butchering people's hard work. Physically and mentally, I don't think people realize you need to vent.
One of the more fascinating aspects of David Fincher's Mindhunter is that it is not just a detective thriller that explores the psychology of serial killers, but that it also explores why we are so fascinated by them, why we are drawn to the dark, why we are captivated, haunted and teased by the unthinkable. Although collecting serial killer memorabilia or writing them letters is a fringe activity, serial killers inhabit a prominent position within both our non-fictional and fictional popular culture. People are glued to coverage of real-life serial killers such as Ted Bundy, Eileen Wuornos and Jeffrey Dahmer, who all have their own documentaries and films.
I now present to you Jeffrey Dahmer in his command performance.
These real killers, together with popular fictional depictions of serial killers such as Hannibal Lecter, Dexter and John Doe, demonstrate how eager the public is to learn more about them. The way in which Mindhunter treats and teases us with acted representations of real-life serial killers was described by a review as serial killer fan service. Serial killers are thus viewed in our culture both as despicable monsters.
Monster, right? I think we can all agree.
And fascinating cult celebrities.
You would really turn down the chance to meet Richard Speck? He's almost up there with Manson.
Well, maybe he'll give you an autograph.
But why is this? Why can't we get enough of them? The first episode of Mindhunter suggests that there is a connection between the behavior of these killers and the broader state of culture and society.
Our democracy is vanishing into what?
Is that what all this is about? Just a response to turmoil?
The government used to be symbolically a parental institution. Now, it's a free-for-all.
The world barely makes any sense, so it follows that crime doesn't either.
Is that what we see in serial killers? Are they an extreme representation of our broader society for which we are all responsible? Of course, Holden and Bill soon find out that serial killers are not crazy, rampant, aberrational parallels to the crazy, chaotic culture of the 60s and 70s.
If that's not frenzied, I don't know what the hell is.
He's so articulate. He's meticulous and highly intelligent.
Yeah.
These killers can be intelligent and organized, with very clear motivations for their quote-unquote work, such as sex, power and domination.
I'm just saying, people who hunt other people for a vocation, all we want to talk about is what it's like.
Thus, if serial killers are an extreme representation of human culture, they are so in the way historian Carsten Fischer describes. He argues that serial killers often develop in the same way as human civilizations do. Civilizations, in their fear of the unknown, have a need to organize, control and dominate nature and other people. Therefore first domesticating and killing animals and later enslaving and killing other humans, just as serial killers start with torturing and killing animals before they move on to people.
So then it became dogs and cats, strangling them, burying them in the backyard.
Hold on. Sorry.
On an individual level, this theory is also reflected by Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self. Jung argues that we repress primitive, negative, socially or religiously depreciated human emotions and impulses like sexual lust, power striving, selfishness, greed, envy, anger or rage into our unconsciousness, our dark side so to speak. The shadow self is the counterpoint to what Jung called the persona, which is our conscious ego, how we see ourselves and represent ourselves towards the world.
It's by Irving Goffman. He posits that life is like theater. We tailor ourselves to fit the parts that we're playing.
In a social interaction, as in theatrical performance, there's an onstage area where individuals or actors, as the case may be, appear before the audience. But there must be a backstage, a hidden, private area where individuals can truly be themselves.
Of course, and at least
I argue that Mindhunter explores the notion that this is why we are fascinated by serial killers. Because we see in them extreme versions of personality traits that are part of us but that we repress into our unconsciousness, that are part of our shadow selves. The series primarily does this through the character of Holden Ford. In the early episodes, we primarily see Holden's persona. He seems smart but humble, idealistic, with a real drive to do good.
You sure you want me doing that?
You're smart, you're idealistic, more than a little sensitive. They're gonna love you.
However, he already mentions a tactic that he will later use in his interviews with serial killers.
Try understanding him instead of trying to dominate him. Look for common ground. Find commonality.
Because of this, very slowly over the course of the season, due to his extensive interactions with these killers, personality traits of his shadow self come forward. Traits such as envy and fucked up views of sex and women, which he claims is just an interview technique but seems very much connected to the state of his relationship.
What gave you the right to take 8 ripe cunts out of the world? Some of them look pretty good. You ever think you were depriving the rest of us?
While also becoming more arrogant and power hungry.
You think I don't know what you're doing with this principal's office bullshit? This is what I do with violent offenders, only much better.
To see this in contrast, in episode 3 he is celebrating a successful case like this.
Thank you for acknowledging what my partner Bill and I are doing. And for embracing that if we all work together, we can venture into the blackest night and shine a light on the darkness.
While in episode 10 it is a different story.
What are they like? I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here when I say they are.
However, I have heard some people suggest that Holden in the next season might become a serial killer himself. I think this would be too easily a plot twist after such a slow and subtle transformation into his shadow self. More importantly, the concept of the shadow self doesn't mean we are all secretly murderous psychopaths. Serial killers represent extreme versions of negative traits that normal people would possess in a much more minor capacity. Carl Jung argues that to become one's complete self, the shadow self needs to be recognized, acknowledged and accepted. As Jordan Peterson argues, this can be done through an intellectual exercise wherein you contemplate your own capacity for evil.
And I don't think, and this is something I did learn from Jung, is that you cannot be a good person until you know how much evil you contain within you. It is not possible. And it's a very strange thing because you wouldn't think that the revelation of the capacity for evil is a precondition for the realization of good. But I believe, first of all, why would you be serious enough to even attempt to pursue the good unless you had some sense of what the consequence was of not doing it?
With regards to Holden, he doesn't seem aware of his own shadow self coming forward until possibly the very end of the season. In my opinion, it is unclear what Holden Ford's breakdown signifies. Due to his clash with Kemper, he might have become aware of his own shadow self coming forward, becoming a more balanced person in the next season.
Who are you, the fucking thought police? Torture, mutilation, that is your world, and it has made you paranoid.
But it could also mean that he will spin further out of control, his shadow self taking over while being unable to catch a new serial killer on the rise. Mindhunter will continue to explore the psychology of serial killers, profiling some of the world's most famous ones, but maybe it is simultaneously profiling us as well. Alright, thank you all for watching and thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You probably have seen them featured in other videos before, but rightfully so. As someone who doesn't know how to code, I've worked with several website template systems in the past and Squarespace is by far the most elegant and easiest to use. You also don't have to pay for any subscription or website domain upfront. Using that free trial you can design your complete website before deciding to pay for anything. So if you want to feature your serial killer memorabilia or maybe just your music, videos or artwork on a website, use squarespace.com/storytellers and also get 10% off your first purchase. The link is in the description below. Now if you want to support our channel and get some stickers, you can do so on Patreon or send us a tip through PayPal. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to fellow video essayer John from Before the Credits for helping me out with some of the practicalities of this video. Check him out too, link is also in the description below. Alright guys, thank you for watching and Thomas' video will be up next Saturday, so look out for that. See you next time.